Good morning, everyone, and welcome to week 7 of our virtual low vision fair. Today's presentation is on mental health. The virtual low vision fair comes to you from the Wisconsin Council of the Blind and Visually Impaired. Our mission is to promote the dignity and empowerment of people in Wisconsin who are blind and visually impaired through legislative advocacy, vision services, and education. Today, we have a speaker, Guy Smith, who is from Blackstone Therapy here in Madison-Fitchburg area. And he will be talking about mental health aspects of vision loss. And I'll be sharing some resources when Guy is through. Go ahead and turn it over to Guy.
Hi, everybody. My name's Guy. Thanks to the council for having me. I super appreciate it. I am really excited to talk about counseling. I am a professional counselor here in Fitchburg. I live in Madison, and I do almost all of my counseling by telehealth. I will say off the get-go, I am blind. I have a big monitor here, so I'm going to do this occasionally just to make sure I'm keeping steps with where I'm at. Many of you probably understand that. I want to share a little about me. So I mentioned I'm a professional counselor. Here's a picture of me in a long sleeve sitting in front of some foliage outside. I'm a kind of a smaller, thinner white guy. I have brown hair and a beard. And in this picture, I'm wearing glasses because I like the way they look. I am also a PhD student here at the University of Wisconsin-Madison in rehabilitation and counselor education. My hope is to train the next generation of counselors to serve folks with disabilities, hoping that will bring more awareness and help to folks like us. I'm also blind. I have my screen reader running, sorry. I'm also a blind person. I'm somewhere between the world of low vision and blind. So I use screen readers, but I also use magnification. I'm kind of in a weird space. And I've been blind since I was 9. And I am now 36, as it would turn out. So it's been quite a while. Happy to share my experience, and I will share kind of as we go. So today we're going to talk about a number of different things when it comes to vision loss and counseling. A lot of different important aspects here. Start with changes and kind of how they affect us. Move into when you might consider getting a counselor, because that's an important question we all ask. Should I? I'm thinking about that. How to find somebody. What to look for in a counselor, because that's an important question too. And then some tips I have to improve your outcome through therapy. As our vision changes, whether or not we're a person who has a sudden change or in my case, a gradual change over many years, we can think about that as a loss, just like we would lose a loved one or a pet. Or members of family for me. It's a big deal to us because it changes the way we interact with the world. It changes a little bit of who we are, maybe, how we see ourselves. And we can see that in the way people come to that loss. Sometimes we show up in your normal grieving process, having some actual grief, some sadness, some fear, maybe some anger, maybe we're even looking to a higher power and saying, if I'm better, will you stop this loss, please? I don't want to lose more of my vision. That said, vision loss is specifically different because it changes the way we engage with our world in a pretty substantial way. And it might mean that we have to get used to a way of being, having a certain level of vision. And then as the years tick on, maybe we can't adapt in the same way we've figured out to. Maybe the large print playing cards aren't quite big enough anymore. And that means we can maybe have to go through that process of going through this grief and getting used to this process all over again. Unsurprisingly, that can have a substantial impact on our confidence in our ability to do things that we've taken for granted for maybe 40, 50, 60 years. I think most of us have had the experience or the story of somebody who's decided to not drive anymore for one reason or another, and the impact that that has on their life and their ability to be independent or to go places. But that extends to so many other parts of our lives. The way we interact with other people socially, going to visit, going and meeting people at a restaurant, although that's been quite different over the last couple of years. And the way that impacts the way we see ourselves is pretty substantial. Now, the feelings we have here are really valid. And that might sound a little weird for me to say that like your feelings matter and they're real, but they really are. Some people might say, oh, it's been a year, why is this still bothering you? Why are you still upset about this? But perhaps there's things that you're doing that are a little different. Perhaps there's things that you've decided you can't do anymore. And that's powerful and challenging and can really shake a person. I've worked with, my practice, I forgot to mention here that my practice focuses on working with people with disabilities or people with differences in ability, depending on how you like to look at that. Meaning that, I work with people who have things in their lives that they can't change anymore. That's lends a lot of insight, and I really appreciate those folks. And here I have a picture of a cribbage board because I think it's can be powerful to remember that we can carry these feelings and carry these challenges with us. And that doesn't change that we can do things that are positive at the end of the day. We can make the choice to cook even if it's really hard, even if we have to ask our spouse or a friend if the meat's actually cooked. And in the end, number of other challenges that we might need a little bit of help. But it's our actions at the end of the day that can really matter the most. I have a wonderful quote here by Viktor Frankl, who is a psychologist during World War II, and he's a Holocaust and concentration camp survivor. It reads, when we are no longer able to change the situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. I think that's a powerful, powerful statement. For many of us, perhaps all of us, we have things in our lives that we can't change, even though we desperately would want to. So I often ask the question, what can I do? What can I do different? What can I change about me to be a better me, to do the things that I want to do? There's things that we can do in working on ourselves to improve ourselves, to hopefully improve our lives. One of those that's challenging, leave our worry in the future. And I mean to maybe the old adage of that I'll worry about that when it happens. It'd be really normal for any one of us to worry about, what's my vision going to look like in 5 years? 5 years in the future, who knows? Who knows what medical science will do or how life will change? The challenge with that is we can imagine any kind of outcome. I could imagine being a robot in 5 years. It doesn't make it any more true. You can also hear what the doctor says and says, in 5 years, you may or may not have more or less vision. And that can tell us that we don't really know what's going to happen. And so maybe we don't focus on worrying about that today. Maybe we prepare a little bit, but spending our days worrying about it means that we're not spending our days doing things that we love or spending time with people we could really care about. Coming to a place of acceptance, though, and saying, I am who I am, and this is what I can do for the moment. Getting to that place is challenging, and it is not simple. But when we can come closer to that space or to that space and just accept ourselves for who we are and what we are in the moment, we free ourselves a little bit to do other things that we care about, to maybe leave that worry a little bit more in the future. And the last bit is a little bit of a personal anecdote. It's an attitude of problem solving. It would be very natural for any one of us to come to a place where we run into something that we can't do on the face and say, oh, this thing's really, I can't do this. And we can go straight to a place of being upset or sad or frustrated, or maybe even be upset with ourselves a little bit. But if we can hold off on that for a moment and move to a place of problem solving and say, not, I can't do this, but can I do this differently? Is there a way that I can do this that would support me being independent? And that's served me really well as my vision has changed over the years, and as things I was able to do are more challenging, or I've had to do in a completely new way, or float ideas by friends and see what happens. It can be a really powerful approach. There are things we can do. And I was able to pull a couple studies here, which are really recent, which is great, about people in the academic world doing research on people with vision impairments and saying, what do we, based on our research with real people, see that people can do to improve their lives? And there's some great things here because they're all actionable, which I love. I love actionable things here. The first is adaptive technology. Those might be video magnifiers or bump dots, raised dots. They could be braille. They can be all kinds of things that give us a little bit of extra capacity or ability. That would also include like screen readers or screen magnifiers if you're using a computer. And any number of other devices. There's so many for so many different little purposes. And that goes nicely in hand with training on how to do things. Perhaps you've learned, or perhaps you heard of, the idea that you stick your finger in your drink as you pour, to know how tall it is. That's the simplest, smallest little trick that you can learn. And it's not intuitive at first, but really gives us the opportunity to be much more successful at something small. There are any number of those things that we can do, particularly with navigating. How do you navigate being a blind person crossing the street and being successful and safe, navigating the bus and so forth and so on? All of these things that we can get to without reinventing the wheel, as it were, through some training. Counseling is another one. Unsurprising as the topic of this presentation. Counseling can give us an opportunity to work through and move through some of our challenges, maybe get some other perspectives, have somebody to talk to. The others are this interesting study here by LaBerce shared that significant others, regardless of their own vision or vision challenges, also can benefit from counseling on their own, because they share that challenge with you if you have a partner in the house, and that can be incredibly supportive for them. The last support can be talking and sharing your challenges with family, whether that's a direct partner, or perhaps if you're living or have a chance to chat with other family and friends. Their support can be really, really important. So kind of outlined here so far, the number of challenges we might go through and some direct ways we might step into those. Of course, my focus is counseling because that's my specialty. That's what I do. One of the first questions a lot of people ask me is, when do you think I should get counseling? Or in this case, what might I get counseling for? Because we might say vision loss, but that's might not be specific enough for some folks. And so what sort of circumstances or personal experiences might you have that you might consider counseling? One of those are sort of things you're doing. First of which might be, are you avoiding something? Are you avoiding people? When we see folks avoiding, a lot of times we're wondering what's running through their heads. What about that experience don't they want to have? Maybe playing golf like we used to, our score is way higher than we would want it to be, and it reminds us how our vision has changed, or any other circumstances. Or if you're not doing things that you want to. Sometimes that can be a good indicator of things that are important to us that we've left behind for any number of reasons. Feelings, unsurprisingly. These can really, really range. I've put some examples here with a sad looking puppy. Maybe it's just a little exhausted. These are really important. We all have these experiences and they're usually very private. Feeling sad, maybe a little empty, kind of coasting through our days. Isolated, this is the time for that, of being removed from our friends and families as we try to keep ourselves safe, coming through the pandemic and going into a very spooky second time, it looks like. Maybe we're just tired of the fight daily to make things work. Perhaps other folks also have other health conditions that, and the vision is secondary to that. These are good indicators if these are particularly challenging. You find them showing up a lot, might be a good indicator of something you might want to talk to somebody about. If we have some thoughts are important. Tell us a little bit about what our brain is trying to communicate to us about us or about our environment. Some things sometimes show up for us. We might have the thought of, I can't do things like I used to, and I'm not worth it. Or am I a broken person now? My favorite on this list that feels a little powerful to me is, what's even the point? We can get to a place where we forget how great life can be, how doing things we want to do is meaningful. And we get to a challenging place and we ask, what's even the point? If we think to ourselves, maybe I have some difficulty doing other things, coping, find yourself overwhelmed by feelings and doing other things to cope that maybe you don't think are healthy or try to avoid thinking about. Common, even for me. Caring for yourself can be really challenging in any number of ways. And if you're trying to have a hard time doing some self-care and taking care of your mental, emotional, and physical well-being, that might be a reason to reach out. And the old trope of just hard time getting out of bed. And I do in this case mean the more why get out of bed or lay there for a couple hours be really challenging. Might be a reason to reach out. But specifically coming back to vision related things. we could have a difficulty with a number of different spaces. If we find ourselves having a hard time kind of accepting and coming to terms with where we're at, what our vision looks like now, having a hard time talking about it, these might be some good circumstances to chat with somebody about it. One that I find that sticks out to me particularly is coming to a place where we have a hard time doing several things that are important to us, and having the experience of thinking like, I can't do anything. It just seems like I can't do anything. And that can be really difficult, because when we start to have those thoughts, it's really disempowering, can leave us really sad, and leave us isolated even more. If while I was talking, you sort of had some feelings show up, maybe you heard about me talking about isolated and you had a little bit of sadness creep up, that might be a good indicator to you that this is something that's relevant or important to you. When things like that creep up a little bit while somebody else is talking, for me, that's a good emotional indicator that I have something that maybe is a little unresolved, maybe something I might want to talk about. When might you want to go see somebody is a great question. So maybe you're sitting here with me and you're thinking, I'm a little sad. I've been down the last year. It's been challenging. I've been feeling a little alone. And so you might ask, like, well, when should I? Like, when's that line that I should notice in the sand? And I should say, oh, I should go talk to somebody. And my answer to that would be, if you're thinking to yourself, maybe I should go talk to somebody, you should go find somebody today. And I have a compelling set of reasons. The first is, today you have more energy if things are challenging than maybe tomorrow or the next week. Seeking somebody out and taking that time, energy, and patience to do so, it's important. If you're having the thought that maybe I should talk to somebody, it's also good to do that, because we never know what that roller coaster will look like. We all have those where we have good weeks and more challenging weeks. If you're kind of on an okay week, it's a good week to go look for somebody. That way they can be here to support you on that challenging week. Now, if you're in a place where you're already in that challenging week or month or season, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm not saying reach out to me, but reach out for counseling, reach out for support, even if that's to friends and family. It's important. The one thing that I've heard frequently in my time working with folks and serving the community is people who've told me, I wished I had reached out to somebody before it got really hard or really bad or really challenging. Because on those days where we don't want to get out of bed, it's going to be hard to get out of bed and pick up the phone and call somebody you don't know. Now, if you already have that relationship established, it's easier to reach out and say, hey, I'm having a particularly rough day. Can we talk? Can we set up an appointment? So this leads pretty naturally into the question of how to find somebody. I think that's an important part of our search. Just knowing where to look can be really helpful. Now, if you have access to the internet, you can look online. I recommend 2 websites, that being Therapy Den and Psychology Today. Both are pretty accessible via screen reader and magnification, thankfully. And there are a number of counselors available in Wisconsin in general who are doing telehealth, but also hopefully in your cities nearby. Here in Madison, there's so many of us. But I think a great place to start is by asking friends and family, hey, do you have a counselor? Have you seen somebody? And that might feel a little weird. Counseling is sort of a private thing. But if you're asking about a counselor, I think it's okay. But I also think it's important if you have loved ones in your life and you feel a little spooked asking if they've seen a counselor or if they have somebody they could recommend. You might be creating a little bit of distance between yourself and somebody else who might be there to support you. I see that a lot. And I understand that having challenges is a little shameful. And it's in our culture, it's a little something you don't talk about. And I recognize and I respect that. But if you have that opportunity and you can feel or become comfortable doing so, I highly recommend asking. Referrals and hearing about counselors that people like is a great way to get started. You can also look and see if there's any agencies, offices nearby. You can do that in the phone book. You can do that online. Sometimes you can also see advertisements or stuff you get in the mail. These are good places to start. Others are asking other health providers in your network that you work with regularly if they have any suggestions. A lot of other health professionals, whether that be your primary care, your dentist, your physical therapist, they might know somebody that they can refer you to. And that can be a great way to start reaching out to more people. Even if the first person you get to doesn't have a specialty that fits your needs, they might have somebody they can suggest for you. I highly recommend just calling. You find a phone number for a local counselor, just call them. They probably won't answer because we're usually talking to people, but you can leave them a message and there's nothing wrong with that. I wish people would do that more often because I would have a chance to reach back out to somebody who might have questions or have needs. It's very normal for us to get a call. And I work with people so often who call me and say, I have no idea what counseling is, but I'm having a hard time. Can you help me? I am more than happy to onboard someone, tell them about what the experience is like, explain the whole deal. And I love it when people are upfront and just say, I have no idea what I'm doing, because that gives me the opportunity to help. And that's why I'm here. And I think that most counselors are sort of in that same boat. And so if you have questions, just ask them. Very straightforward. We're usually very open people. What do you look for in a counselor? How do you assess another human being to be here to support you while you're, going through things? The first is I would ask what their specialties are. All counselors pretty much have specialties. We all have specialties. We either think to ourselves, this is my specialty, or we advertise. Sometimes those are even different, depending on, our business model and things like that, because we're a little bit of both. Asking can be really supportive. Asking if someone's worked with people with your concern. If your main concern is vision, ask them if you worked with somebody with a visual impairment before. Ask them if they've had somebody with life transition challenges. These are important questions. One of the things you're looking for while you're chatting with them, once we get to that point, is, I'm going to rewind here for a second because I realized I missed a step. When you're reaching out to people and you're calling them, ask for a consultation. A consultation with a counselor looks a little bit different than when like a doctor or other health professional. You're going to get a 15-minute usually or half an hour conversation with them to ask your questions. It's free. You don't have to fill out paperwork first usually. It might be over the phone. It might be over Zoom. It just kind of depends. That consultation can be wonderful for getting a feel for people. During that conversation, looking for a sense of trust. Do I feel like I can trust this person to share my things that are really challenging? That's why counselors are here. Do I feel like I can trust this person? Does their face trustworthy? Is my face trustworthy? Is my voice trustworthy? That's the kind of thing that you're going to be looking for. Do they take your insurance? Modern healthcare challenges. I would want to say that all counselors take all insurances, but it's just not the reality of the situation for us. If you have Medicare, you're going to be looking for somebody who's a licensed social worker. They're the only people who can charge Medicare. Medicaid, on the other hand, if you happen to have that, or other commercial insurance, you can just ask the counselor directly. And that is totally okay if that's your first question on the phone. Hi, what insurances do you take? Do you take Blue Cross Blue Shield? Do you take Medicare? That's totally okay to have that question. I get it all the time. I understand someone's just trying to respect their own time and mine. What are other things that you can look for and be thinking about? Maybe what are the specialties that you might be thinking about? I'm going to be honest that there's not many counselors out there who say, I specialize in working with folks who have vision loss. Even more broadly, working with people directly with disabilities, as would be my outlook and specialty. There's not many of us. I want to train new counselors to do that, but we're not there yet. You can look around and see if you can find that. But some other keywords you might look for would be chronic health conditions, chronic pain, and cancer. Now you might ask, why those three? And my answer would be because those three are specifically working with folks with a set of challenges, people who have things that aren't likely to change or are likely to get worse. And they understand that perspective of, I don't know what next year will look like. I know today is where I'm at and the future is uncertain. And having to rise to that challenge without being able to change it directly. Could also look at two others, perhaps life transitions, getting used to things changing. Perhaps you're going through changes at work, or maybe you've left work. Can be really supportive. And there are many counselors, fortunately, who focus on aging and that transition. Now, during your consultation, which might be phone, might be Zoom, or in person if you have that opportunity, just to bring something onto the front of your mind of questions they might ask. They might ask you, what's bringing you in? And they're really just asking, what's the thing that's bothering you the most? What's the thing that's presenting the big challenge? And it's okay to be really upfront with that, especially if there's more than one thing. What are concerns you have about counseling? There's worries we all have. There are things that run through our minds as we get on the phone with somebody. Maybe we're worried about privacy. Maybe we're worried about how often we can meet with somebody, whether we can afford that or not. These are important things. Questions you might ask during the consultation, beyond things we've covered already. What's your style? What is it like to work with you, the counselor? Maybe you do some research on their specific type of therapy if you're interested in that. A lot of us have some different things that we use, and there's information widely available for those things on the internet or at your library for that matter. What are things that you believe? Is an important question. I would want my counselor to believe that I'm a human and I have value because I am alive and I am here, and that they believe that I can do things and that I have a right to be well. All counselors have things they believe strongly, but it's part of getting to know who you might be working with. Important questions to ask. Process of getting a counselor means trying to find the right fit. And it's hard. I am okay at it because I do it so frequently. Trying to understand as I'm sitting across from somebody if we both feel comfortable with each other, or I feel like they can open up and share things with me. It is hard. And it can't do it with everybody. It takes a little bit of time and experience to learn what that might look like as we're looking for trust. It's okay if you start working with somebody and you're like, I don't trust you. Maybe you don't say it like that. But it's okay to make that choice of like, I don't feel comfortable working together. and I think that I'm going to look for another counselor. You can also say, I don't think this is working. Is there somebody you can refer me to? As a counselor, it is my ethical responsibility to listen to you say that, maybe ask a couple questions, see if there's something we can work through, and to send you off to somebody else or share some information about other clinicians that I work with or know so that you can find somebody that's right for you. This is something from my end that happens all the time. In day-to-day life when we're at the bank, it would seem so rude if your teller was like, I don't feel like this is a good fit. I can't help you. Go get cash from somebody else. It would be so strange. And I share and I reinforce this a little bit because I have talked to people who worked with somebody for months and were never comfortable with that person and didn't feel like they could talk about the difficult things. And it was hard. And they didn't know that they could move on if they needed to. It's an important part. Telehealth, if you haven't had the opportunity, I want to share a little bit about that. I do all of my therapy these days via telehealth. I love it, to be honest. But a little bit about what it is, in case you're not familiar with the term. Telehealth is having a regular appointment, at least as regular as it can be, usually over video and audio, sort of like this, in a space that's more private and other people can't barge in on, of course. But depending on your access to technology and space, that might include just a phone call. I get a lot of questions about, is telehealth weird? What is it like? It's a little weird. It's a little weird because it's a little different than sitting across from an actual person in the same room. It's not quite the same. It doesn't feel the same. There's something about it's difficult to explain. Maybe you're sitting in your dining room having a cup of coffee like this gentleman, like me. And that's a little different. It can be hard to wrap our heads around that. But you do get used to it after a couple sessions usually, and talking about it maybe. But I love it because it makes going to counseling or getting counseling really physically accessible. I, like many other people, have to take the bus to get to my office that is like a mile and a half away. I have to take an hour-long bus route that goes like all the way around places. I have access to other types of transportation, certainly, but it's a great opportunity to access counseling in a time that's convenient and you have emotional, mental space time for that. It can be really wonderful if that's the right choice for you. And your counselor provides it, which most do these days. Just want to pause here to take a second. Anybody has any breakthrough questions before I kind of finish up with my last 5 suggestions? I have 5 suggestions for you. Things that I've seen through my time and things that I would tell people if I could just be like, these are things you might think about because I want you to be more successful. And if you get a counselor and you have time with them, these are things that I'm thinking about. Number 1, there are some days you're not going to want to go. It's just the truth. In counseling, we talk about really challenging things. Rarely do we go in and have a lot of fun. Sometimes we do. Sometimes it's really exciting and you walk out feeling really great. But just the idea that we're going to talk about some of the hardest things that we deal with in life means that you might find your mind trying to come up with reasons why you can't go. Spilled your coffee. Got to clean it up. Now I'm having a bad day. I don't want to go to counseling. I see it a lot. Going to counseling and keeping the routine, keeping the momentum is really important. My second is that thinking about therapy outside of therapy is really important. Going to therapy is a process where we learn how to engage with the things that are going on for us. It's a little bit different than going to the doctor or the physical therapist or things like that. Well, I guess it's more like going to the physical therapist. Might give you exercises to do outside. Similar here. Unfortunately, I would love it if it were the case that people could spend an hour a week with me, and over time, all their challenges would be remedied, ameliorated, but it's less the truth than I would like it to be. So thinking about therapy and thinking about the things you talk about and working through some of those things in between session is really important. And I see this frequently where the folks I ask, have you thought about this since the last time we talked? Not really. It takes work, unfortunately. You are a complex person. You might not think so. You're used to you. But especially coming from another person, you're complicated. Got years of life and experiences and thoughts and things I could never grasp. I could sit with you for 100 hours a year and I would never come to really know all the parts of you and understand all your experiences and hear all your stories. And I say this because I want you to understand that going to counseling is like, it's an adventure with your counselor. You're going together and they're coming with you as a guide to help you understand different ways to look at things, different ways to meet your challenges, other perspectives. And that journey takes time and hard work. And understanding, the thing you can do here is just understanding from your counselor's point of view how complicated you are. That's wonderful. It's really easy in the process of counseling to lose touch with what keeps you here, what motivates you to change your actions, to move forward, to be the kind of person you want to be, because it's hard work. And so keeping in mind as you go forward, making a board. Why am I here? Why am I doing all this hard work? And feeling that. It's really important. Maybe it's for yourself because you love and respect yourself. Maybe it's because you want a better tomorrow. Maybe it's because you want to be there for your family, for grandkids, siblings, what have you. It's important to keep that in mind. My last one, and perhaps the most important, is to be honest with your counselor. I work with folks and 6 months in, they tell me the thing that's really been bothering them the whole time. The thing that's in their past that they so don't want to talk about. It's so painful and so challenging. It probably makes sense to you if I say it like this, but the deepest, darkest things that we carry with us, the things that we're ashamed to think about, that we passes through our minds and we hide from, and the things that we really don't want to talk about, the important things to bring up, because they do affect us. I have those things. It's important to talk about those, or at least bring them up and share them with your counselor. And I say be honest because it's very natural for us to want to hide those a little bit because we're spooked. It's what people do. It's okay to be scared. Talked about a lot of things today. And going to open up for any Q&A here in just a moment. But I just want to note the broad summary. Going through some changes or had some changes, lost some vision, might lose some more. Probably going to have a lot of feelings. Totally understandable. I want to tell you I've had those too. been there and I'll be there again, sometimes on a daily basis. That's okay. It's part of the process. And I hope that you can find support and reach out and find new ways of doing things. There are so many things that we can do and so many things that we might find to support us in doing things we love. And if you decide to reach out for a counselor, I wish you the best. Got some references here because I like reading. I want to take time for questions. Please avail yourself. I get tons of questions all the time. You probably cannot ask me a question that I have not had before.
I have a question, Guy, about
Please.
talking with the counselor up front about how long services might last. You know,
Sure.
like when you go to PT, you're approved for 3 months, twice a week type of a
Sure.
thing. And what kind of a time frame can you kind of put in your head for counseling?
It's a great question. Really ranges. So usually we get to know somebody a little bit and get to know what's going on before we give a time range. Fortunately, in a lot of circumstances, insurances don't require prior authorization like they do with PT. And so there's usually less limits on access to counseling, which is fantastic. My instinct is that when I meet somebody and they're just having a couple challenges, they're having things they're worrying about, want some ideas or alternative perspectives. Sometimes we might meet 2 or 3 times and that's it. And then they keep me on speed dial or we meet once a month. We call that maintenance. But for somebody who's having significant challenges, is maybe going through a change, that might be 8 weeks. It might be 6 months, might be a year. I have people I've worked with very shortly and people I've worked with for a really long time. It does vary quite a lot, and I never quite know what to expect.
Thank you.
Of course.
I have a question. Also, are these people you have listed here, these references, are they don't show any locations of where they are. Do they all do telepsychiatries or therapies?
Sure.
You know?
So these references are not resources, which I think are coming next momentarily. These are my references where I pulled some of the studies about specific things that have been shown to help folks, specific with vision impairments. So this will refer back to papers and things like that. Sorry for the confusion.
Okay, I wondered because the hyperlinks are there, but if we go to the hyperlinks, we'll lose the Zoom program we're in. So
Exactly.
you know,
I would imagine some of these things will be made available elsewhere.
okay.
Yeah, so
I'm seeing nods.
all of these links will come on a resource sheet so that you can just click on them on that
Okay.
resource sheet. And then Guy mentioned 2 places in your presentation, Therapy Den and Psychology Today. And
Correct.
I will find those links and include those in the resource sheet as well.
Oh, good. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
There will be, but who knows when I'm going to remember what they are.
Welcome to reach out by email. Happy to answer things for folks.
Oh. We will have your email when the session is over. Is that correct?
Yes.
I believe so.
Okay, thank you again. I do have one question that you have experience with low vision patients and everything. Does it ever really change so that they feel better about their situation? I'm horribly frustrated just because and Jean, I've been meaning to call you. I, I don't know what to do for more products to help me be able to see, because there seems to be no one place where you can go where they have a total variety of products to help you see. I mean, the Madison thing was great. When I went down there, it was a little overwhelming because there were so many products, but there were no products like Iris Vision or Accutech or things that I would like to try, because as you well know, the prices of all these products are quite high, and you don't want to spend thousands of dollars on something when there's something else that may have worked better for you. And I'm just ready to pull my hair out, because there doesn't seem to be any place that you can go where they have a total broad section of all different types of products. You made reference to a screen reader. I don't even know what a screen reader is. Is that something
question.
that you can put in front of your computer to make it enlarged? I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to do research on all of this before I cough up with thousands of dollars. I can't afford to make a mistake. So I'll
Sure.
shut up now and listen.
When we have questions that are really important to us, they kind of just pour out, and then we're like, oh, I have another one. I have another one. I have a bunch of questions.
Right.
I completely understand.
Yeah.
I am the same way. So your first question is do I work with people, and do they get to a place where they're less frustrated? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And I think that some of that comes to a place where you hopefully can find your way to this sort of being a normal experience, where perhaps you get to a place where you can say, searching for a new piece of tech can be exciting. What could I do with this thing? But it does take time. And yes, it's frustrating. I personally have been in that place many times, where you're working with vendors, or you're working at you have a booth that has 60 different things, some of which may fit really well for you, some of which may not. I don't have any particular specific knowledge about Wisconsin and spaces and things that you can look at to get a good idea of that. Perhaps some resources will be shared about that. And your last question, by the way, do people get less frustrated is a challenging question. The answer is yes. Process of getting there is a little difficult to explain. And that's why people come work with counselors or folks like me. A screen reader is a program built into your computer or added to your computer, in which actually verbally reads your computer to you, generally navigating your computer with keyboard only. Takes a bit to learn, is not easy, but can be really wonderful. It means I can use a laptop on the go while wearing earbuds, and lets me do all kinds of things. It's frustrating sometimes because it doesn't work the same. Sometimes I just want to use a mouse and look at the screen, but it does help quite a lot. Hopefully that helps.
It would be nice to be normal again.
It would be.
Yeah.
Sure would be. We're here. I have that thought on a regular basis.
Going to just show you some different online sites. And again, you will get these links in a resource list. But there are places online that you might want to go and get some assistance with that sort of overall topic of adjusting to vision loss. The first site that I'm showing is from Hadley. And Hadley has a discussion series called Adjusting to Vision Loss. And they currently have 4 different, they call them workshops, but going in, they're all pre-recorded workshops and you can just listen to them, or you can just read the transcripts, whichever is easier for you. And their current ones are Coming to Grips with Vision Loss. And this one is done by two men who have experienced their own journey with vision loss that they share. One is called Tools for Talking About Vision Loss. One is Asking for Help and Turning It Down Too. And the fourth one is Partners to Build Skills and Boost Confidence. And these last two in particular are getting at you're not alone. There are other people out there, and some of it is learning how to be with those people as a person with a vision loss. So these are at no cost to people to listen to. The second one is a woman whose name is Hannah Fairbarn. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. She used to teach at the Carroll Center, and she wrote this book called Vision Loss and Personal Recovery. And she makes the book available at no cost to people who have vision loss. It's also available through the National Library Service as an audiobook, and it's available through Amazon. So a number of ways that you can get her book. The book has become a blog, so that she probably puts out a blog post every 2 weeks or so on different topics. And her blog posts vary a lot, but she does have a section on personal recovery. And so like one of her blogs has been on self-advocacy when you can't see. I'm gonna just scroll down. Some real practical things like how to find out who you're talking to if you can't always see the people who are out there. The blog that she wrote about this book called My Heart Is Not Blind, on blindness and perception. This is a book of the stories of many different people, 46 people who live with blindness or low vision. There's one other, and then she has a video on how to grieve after sight loss. So it has many different types of information. The blog posts are all very short, I would say 15 minutes to either read or listen to. And they're all very practical, very much things you can incorporate and try in your own personal life. Now, the council, this next site is a council's website, which lists the support groups that are available by county in Wisconsin. And this is being updated. Judith has been working on this most of the summer, and I think she's pretty close to being done. And so it lists the groups that we're aware of that have regular support group meetings, and then it lists who you contact. So for example, in Dane County, we know that there's a support group in DeForest, Monona, Oakwood Village East, Evansville, Stoughton, and the council's online support group. So for each one, it gives you the name of the contact person so that you can get in touch and find out a little bit more about the group. Almost all of the groups that are listed are groups that are open to anyone to participate. A lot of them traditionally have been in person. They are still starting to be in person again, but a number of them also have an online meeting and have been doing that during the pandemic. So it's always good to call and find out. So here's Rock County's, for example, and Rock County has one in Beloit that's been around for many years called the Black Hawk Pioneers. So if you're looking for a support group, you can come to the council website and find those that we're aware of. And let me go to the Institute on Aging has a friendship line. Now, the Institute on Aging is located in California, but you do not need to be a California resident to participate in their friendship line. And they have people from all over the country who will come onto the friendship line, and it's there just to talk with other people. And the reason that you call can be about vision loss, or it can just be about feeling lonely, isolated, for whatever reason you would like to talk with other older adults. You can contact the friendship line. Another place that just started telesupport for adults is the Lighthouse Guild. Now, the Lighthouse Guild is out of New York, and they just started this, and currently on their webpage, the Telesupport for Adults, it does say that the group is currently full and at capacity, but they are taking names for a wait list. So when this is a regularly occurring telesupport group. So I did a search on Facebook for just low vision groups about people who are blind, and there were 90 some that showed up, but there are several blind and visually impaired support groups. So I clicked on one, and what you typically see after clicking on one is that it gives you information about that group. It tells you that it's private, but that doesn't mean you can't join. It just means that it's not open to anybody to click on at any time. And it gives you a little bit of information. So like this particular group had 19 new posts today. They have over 9,000 members, and they were created 8 years ago. And so if it's a group that you're interested in, then you click on the join the group, and that usually has to go to a group administrator who then approves new members coming in. So there's not a lot of hoops to join these groups. They just don't want anybody to be able to click and join in. And then there is a place called Covia. And Covia has, it's a virtual community for older adults that offers phone and online activities that build community through group conversation, games, and education. They have a listing of all of their different courses and groups that meet, but they also have, under support, they have a support discussion for the blind group that does meet on a monthly basis. And again, this is at no cost. And maybe it's not the support group that's of interest to you. You know, maybe it's something about connecting across generations or mystery melody, whatever your interests might be. There's a national organization called MD Support for Macular Degeneration, and there's a community of people who belong to this group, and they have an international low vision support group. And this is a group that, if you're able to see the screen here, it has a listing, 3 different listings for 4 different time zones that their groups meet. And so people just identify which time zone they live in and which time which group time they would like to participate in. And there's a toll-free number to call in order to get hooked into that group. I also have the NAMI, Wisconsin, and this one will find you resources by county that has NAMI chapters or organizations that you can contact people more locally if you want. As you can see by the map here, those counties in white do not have NAMI organizations, but a lot of counties do, and they recommend, if you're looking for somebody in one of the counties that doesn't have an organization, is to contact a neighboring county that does. because again, some of their services do not have to be done in person. They can also be done over the phone or video. And like I said, I will also get the links for Therapy Den and Psychology Today that Guy recommended, so that you are able to find other resources that might be helpful to you. So there's quite a few without you having to leave home in order to connect with other people who have vision loss of many different types. On the Facebook one, there are some specific to different types of vision loss, but you do not have to find one specific to your particular vision loss. So any questions about that?
Yes. What does NAMI stand for?
National Alliance on Mental Illness.
Oh, okay.
Don't take it that you have to have a diagnosed mental illness in order to look on the NAMI website or contact their offices. They truly just work with people who need some assistance with their mental health.
Well, we don't have any in Door County anyway, so.
Well, there was one close by though. I did
Oh.
notice on their site.
Brown County, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions that anybody has?
Well, these are great to investigate and go to. Thank you so much for all the work it took to, put this together. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm always looking, I really enjoy Zoom meetings, anyone
Uh-huh.
that has Zoom meetings for the low vision, because I feel like I'm with others that understand, and it feels good to have those kind of meetings. I really enjoy them and look forward to them.
I'd like to thank Guy for a wonderful presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, lots of good information and very encouraging as I was standing here listening, very encouraging of all of us to get assistance when we need it, rather than waiting until we're down on the floor. Thank you very much for that. This is our final low vision fair. My sincere thanks to all of you for spending some time this morning with us. For all of you, enjoy the rest of your day. Bye now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.